Welcome to the Best Kept Secrets podcast, where we share our best kept secrets about life, love, God, and everything in between. Hi guys, welcome to episode 9 of season 4 of the Best Kept Secrets podcast, where we share our best kept secrets on God, love, life, and everything in between. We've just had such a funny moment trying to figure out what episode we're actually on, because we've been bulk shooting so you guys get the episodes on time, and we really hope that you've been enjoying this season. If you're listening to us on Spotify, hi, you can hear us. If you're watching us on YouTube, hi, you can see us. So today we're having yet another Salvation Stories episode. This is a new series that we're trying out, so tell us how you're liking it, how you're feeling it. And we're back with someone who has been here before that you guys really loved. So today he's here on his own solo episode, but please introduce yourself for those who don't know you.
Yo, thanks for having me, Sharon. My name is Ben Cyco. I'm an artist, I'm a musician, also I'm part of a podcast called the Joyride podcast. What else? I do so many things. I serve in church, and yeah, I'm happy to be here.
You're a husband.
I'm a husband. What else?
You're a brother.
I'm a brother. Okay, I'm supposed to say all those. I'm a husband, I'm a brother, I'm a son.
And many
I'm also a
things.
creator and also on Instagram. I'm very opinionated, and I'm so happy to be here. Yeah.
Thank you for coming back for yet
Thanks, Sharon.
another episode. Today uko peke yako, so hot
Yeah.
seat is all yours.
Yeah, I love it. The other one was really good.
It was
Yeah,
actually I think it was the only episode we ever did with men only.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but it did really well,
Yeah.
and I was happy to give men a voice for them to share their opinions and things, because I think women can be a bit more outspoken
Than the
or
men.
just have more platforms to share.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was happy to give you
Thanks,
guys
thanks.
that.
You know, I felt like I've disappointed you a couple of times. And yesterday I felt really, really sick. Like I have not been this sick in a while, but I was like, even if nakam on set na drip, yani daktari ana operate hii lung hii side yenye ina lapel. I was like, I have to come to this show. Hata kana faint ya katikati. I couldn't disappoint you one more time. Ungeniua bana.
No, it's
Ungenimaliza.
okay. Thank you
But
for
I'm happy.
coming and making the sacrifice to come when you're sick. I
No
appreciate it and I see it.
It's a Christian podcast. I expect to find healing here by the time I'm
I
done.
prayed for you.
Oh,
I prayed for you. When you texted me that in the morning, I was just like, God,
Yeah.
whatever the devil is trying to do with
Yeah.
Ben's health, we've cancelled
Thanks,
it.
baby.
So you're
Thanks.
going to be okay.
Feeling
But thank you
slightly
for
better.
coming.
Thanks.
Yeah. So, Salvation Stories is basically where people just come and share their stories about God, their journeys, what was the before, what's the after, what's their journey been like. So who was Ben before Jesus?
For salvation.
Yeah.
Wait, have you shared yours, or maybe I've missed that episode?
I shared mine in a previous season, like Kitambo,
I've missed
but
that
maybe
one.
I'll
Please
share
make me
now
a-
like
Oh, yeah?
an updated version. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to hear yours again. Remember Shazma Mubad?
Yes, Shazma Mubad
Yeah.
to Sharon
I used to
Mwangi.
know Sharon back in high school. I was in Upper Hill. She was in Stato. I'm supposed to say, am I supposed to say these things? Some of them?
No, you're fine to say.
Oh, yeah. Sharon was in Stato, and they were in this group called the Mambo Bad. So like everybody would, so like if you're called
Yeah.
Joyce, you'll be Joyce Mambo Bad. And Sharon was Shaz Mambo
Bad.
Bad.
Yeah. We were 3. Oh no, we were 4. There was Kathy.
Kathy? I only knew you and
Tasha.
Kathy.
There was
Oh,
Kathy Mambo
Tasha.
Bad, Tasha Mambo Bad, Shaz Mambo Bad. I think there was one more person that I'm forgetting. And then those were our Facebook names. So on Facebook I was Shaz Mambo Bad.
Hey, Mambo Bad.
Where?
Oh my goodness, that's so funny.
Teenagehood. Those
Yeah.
things.
So I'm very happy to even just see you do like
My
salvation
growth,
stories.
yeah.
Like you've
Guy.
really changed.
Kai,
Like
where
this is like so
ni Mungu
proper.
tu aki.
Aye,
For real,
yeah,
honestly, because teenage version of me would not think this is where we'd be or
yeah.
what we'd be talking about.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
We also had our own. We used to call ourselves Siang.
I remember
Do you
with
remember Siang?
Dambies
Dambies,
and
Dapper Brother.
Dapper Brother.
Yeah, Done and Jason. And it was just high school was wild, which is even now, it's connected to my story because I grew up in a Christian home. My dad is a pastor, bishop actually. And my mom also is very committed in church leadership. So I grew up in a Christian home, was always, like for us, you had to get born again by the time like you're in class 1, you know?
Yeah.
And so for that worked for us. I also went, so I grew up in a place called Wanye. Wanye right now is a bit developed. There nice houses. Back then Wanye was like the ghetto of the ghettos. So I used to go to a school called Gishagi Primary School. Like that's
For
how bad
real?
it was. Yes,
It was
Kinyanjui
called
Road. It was called Gishagi Primary School, but they had to change the name at least.
Yeah.
So ikaitwa Kinyanjui Road Primary School. At that time it was so bad. Tulikuwa mabati. So because the education system was not that good there, because it was the time when Kibaki issued this free education thing happening, so the school was packed. So to substitute to boost our education, what happened in the slums or in Kwamita was a lot of tuitions came up.
Okay.
So there was a specific tuition that came up in a school called Amaf Academy. Amaf Academy is now a school. So at that time it was not a school. So it was this teacher. He was an engineer in engineering. Felt God telling him, you need to start a school and teach young kids. So my mom took me for that tuition, and there's a reason why I'm including this specific part of the story. So in this tuition, we used to go to school until 4, but from 4 till like 7 you go for tuition at Amaf. Kanyumba tu kama bati zilikuwa ka tatu. So this tuition was a bit intense when it came to spirituality. So like the teacher was so big on prayers. He was like, on Sundays, after church you have to come for prayers here. And now it was not just prayers during on Sundays. It was also, he would introduce cultures like, we have to go for fasting. So at class 6 we used to go for fasting. Yes.
Fast.
Yeah, tulikuwa tunaenda place inaitwa Katoloni. Kids, man. And I think we were literally there. Do you even know there's a place called Katoloni?
It sounds familiar.
Yeah, you're not a true prayer warrior if you don't know Katoloni. I'm judging all of you who don't know what Katoloni. Like life haija kugonga kama hujaenda Katoloni, you know. Yeah. Katoloni is our prayer center. Like it's not even that fancy. Like there people just go to pray for days. So we'd go there and fast. And I remember the first day we went there, we fasted for 3 days, man. And we were like literally kids.
So, like a dry fast or like
just drink the hot chocolate that they sell in the hut, they give you in the morning
as children.
Yeah, as kids
for 3 days.
And I remember going there, and that was the first time I saw Rafton, because he was there to fast and pray as well. So we were just there as kids, and we'd pray. We just pray. So my primary school was a bit intense when it comes to spirituality. And at that time I would like, it was so intense, so such that we were even told, don't listen to rap music, don't listen to hip hop, just listen to good gospel music. So at that time I only used to listen to Makoma.
I loved Makoma,
Napesi. And then there was Rose Muhando. He just dropped her first album, Mungu Nipe Uvumilivu. Like, if you know these songs, endo kunywe maji for your knees, you know. So that's what happened at this time. So at this time I want to listen to a lot of rap, because I feel like God ananifanya nipende kina SK Blue, kina Daddy Owen and all that stuff. So I'd listen to them, but I'd feel guilty because in school we're being told, don't listen to these things, they're not spiritual enough. But nonetheless, I just went on to listen to that stuff. So the reason I'm telling you, at that time I was very conservative. I didn't know, I was into the arts, but I didn't know much about what was happening a lot in secular music. Because, you know, I want to go to heaven and I want to succeed in life. And, you know, for us at that point, education was the only way out in life. Like, this is what was holding on to our money and our success. So it actually worked, because by the time we were doing KCPE, the first person, and this is like, if I paint for you a picture of that school, the guy had rented 3 houses. And these houses didn't even have like desks. They were just like nyumba za mabati tu, empty. You guys come after school, mnasoma kwa floor. And by the time we were doing KCPE, my goal was actually to be on the front page of the paper as the top student. Wow. But I ended up getting 405. Now, getting 405 in a slum school was such a big deal, because the first one got for 30, the other one for 10, I got for 5. It was such a big deal that like a lot of people now brought their kids to that. Remember, it started off as a tuition,
a small school.
Now it becomes a whole school with like hundreds of kids. We did really well. And I went now to high school. I really wanted to go to Mangu. Then I went to Upper Hill. I used to feel like provincial schools are not really my vibe, you know. Sasa tindakuwa naongea na wasichana wa state, nataka kuona deal na wa PB Kenya High. Then I went to Upper Hill School, which is interesting because I feel like that's exactly where God wanted me to be, because it's in Upper Hill that I discovered music. Now, when I went to Upper Hill, I was still, remember, I'm a hardcore safety. So I'm a hardcore safety. I've just finished high school. You know, those are the days I tell God tough prayers like, Father, if I ever leave you, kill me. My God, I used to be such a radical person. So nimejoin Upper Hill School. Upper Hill School has all sorts of people. Iko na wasa wa janja, iko na wasa wameokoka. So the first year as a Form 1, I'm the guy after preps. I have to read a verse for the people, you know.
Wow.
I have to read a verse for the people, tell them to repent. The end time is here. I did that for first term, second term. Then I was introduced to this thing called funkies. And then now this whole kusoma Bible just started dwindling. By the time I'm in Form 2, I've joined St. John's. Now St. John's, we're going for like camps with other schools. And of course, I'm normal, so, and I'm growing, because you see now I'm at this puberty stage, so I'm starting to really like girls, you know, like unaenjoy too company ya madem, nini kukatia, kuvibe, and all that stuff. So I'm really trying to figure out myself. So by the time I'm in Form 2, I'm like, this gospel thing is really slowing me down. I feel like this is too boring. They're telling me I can't visit another chick, I can't hit on chicks. I love, you see, now I came from such a staunch background, not at home, but in terms of the school. So environment. So I felt like this was just boring. It was holding me back. Sasa mimi nikaenda full swing just to become typical Form 2. You're a rebel. I really enjoyed the arts, so now this time I'm exploring different kinds of music. I love now guys in class would make fun of me, like how I used to be a pastor and now I have backslidden. I'm with them, but I couldn't care less. So I developed my social skills. I joined music club, and the reason why I'm in music club is not even because I want to sing. It's because music club was the only club that would go to State House Girls every week.
By the way, you guys were in our school every week. Yeah, because we had a joint choir.
Yeah, we had a joint choir. Yeah. So you see, when you're in high school, yani, I don't know, especially boys school, nika kuna kuanga na testosterone zinakuanga like over the roof. Like people would do anything to see girls. Hata kama watu waongelesha.
And same for us.
Oh really?
Yeah, because even our male teachers, like I remember we had a young one who was like a teacher on practice. Yeah. The girls would go crazy. Anapita tu hivi, all the girls are like, we're all screaming. Why are we screaming?
That was the same with boys. As hata sisi tulikuwa tunakatia matipi and all. I love, you see, when you're in a boys' school, it's like the more chicks you hit on, the cooler you become. Yeah. Now, when I joined Upper Hill, I'm not this cool guy. Because first of all, unaishi sijui wapi. Watu wanaishi Buru Phase 1, watu wanaishi Kilimani. As in, watu wanaweza explain penye wanaishi. Wanaweza kwambia, our house is Buru Phase 4, court this, house number 1. Now, where you live, you can't even tell somebody. You'll just tell somebody, shukia hiyo stage, utaona duka ya Coke, alafu kuna madama kwa hapo kwa duka, mwambie uende hivi straight. So, of course, there was the esteem where you feel like you don't really fit in with these people and all that stuff. But the thing also about the primary school, I didn't tell you, that we only used to speak English.
Oh,
yes,
wow.
24/7. Like speaking Swahili was an abomination. So I didn't know that worked also to just help in how you speak. So by the time I'm going to high school, I can speak very well. So people think I'm also from...
You're bougie.
I'm bougie. So nilikuwa naambia semi naishi Nakumatt Junction hapo mbele, but it's like 30 bob from Nakumatt Junction. So where was I? So now
you joined music club. You're
yes, I joined music club just for the sake of kwenda mafanki kukatia na madema. Now I started saying CU was very boring, man. Like CU guys were just how they were so intense. They don't want to talk to girls. I'm just like, this is not the life I want. Me, adios. So hata sasa naanza kwenda in town sato, because in our school there was Enta. At the same time there was CU. I don't know why they had to be.
Oh, so you choose.
So it's like you are choosing. And every time I'd go for Enta, I always felt like I have chosen the way of Satan, you know, and I have left the way of the Lord, which is narrow, and it's for the people who are committed to God. But I could care nonetheless. Now, when I'm in high school, we start having some very cool guys come to the school for Bible study. Yeah. This was Riga, A-Star, the whole Chit Chat family from Kijiji Records and Kubamba. So I'm like, you mean somebody can be a Christian and be
cool?
This cool.
Yeah.
And so it gave me a balance. So now I also still, because you see at this time, because now I felt like had deviated from God. I used to feel so guilty. Even I don't want to read the Bible. Just feel like God is really looking for me. It's like kuna posters are wanted in heaven. This guy anatafuta amalizwe. The guilt was already eating me up. So I had just put my faith to the side for a while. But now when it comes to Form 3, Form 4, where you need the Lord Jesus, I was deep inside, But basically that was I'd say that's my salvation journey.
Before Jesus.
Before Jesus. Was it even before Jesus?
Like before, when would you say you felt like, okay, now I'm saved, I've given my life to Christ? Did you have an encounter? Did you go to an altar? Did you do like the altar call?
All this time I'm still saved. It's just that because the first time I remember giving my life to Christ was when I was still a kid, and I was led to Christ by my dad. So all these times I'm just like, sometimes I deviate, but then I come back.
So you were always saved?
I was always saved.
Yeah.
I always felt that there is a very strong fire inside of me to love God.
Yeah.
But I just felt like the system was so boring. Like, mi nataka kwenda jam sessions. There were things called jam sessions that would happen at Florida 2000. Florida 2000 was a club hapo Kenya Cinema, which they would allow high schoolers to go to, but then there is no alcohol being sold inside. And
I didn't even know
there is no alcohol sold inside, and then you also can't get too close to chicks. And
really?
Yeah, and there are bouncers all over to ensure
watching.
And they had even nyaunyos.
Oh.
So it was just like a hangout.
The nyaunyos, for real?
For real. So I used to go to church. I would always go to church. Then afternoon, tunaenda Florida 2000, because I used to love the music. At that time, I feel like I need to be an artist. Like I feel the fire of being an artist in there. But I didn't think it was going to be in the gospel space necessarily. But I just love the arts, the creative and all that stuff. So tulikuwa tunanga jam sessions, have fun and all that stuff. So I was still a Christian, but sometimes
you are not an active Christian, maybe we can say.
I'd say I was just a Christian with a lot of drama, a lot of baggage,
Yeah.
Then I went to campus. Now in campus also pia umetupambao kiasi, because you have to go to church. You have to try and...
What campus did you go to?
KU. Now KU is also wild, man. Kwanza nakumbukanga KU after I joined KU, the first week there was that like this freshers bash. And the guys who we met at Excans pia so tukapatana pia KU. And like day one, it's like tumeachiliwa, now we sleep there and all that stuff. So now you don't have to go home.
Yeah.
And like week one, I'm seeing like all my church friends wamelewa, wengine wako juu ya wall, wengine wako juu ya aje. And we had our cafes, where we still go out, but then on Sunday you still go to church. And I'd say that was just like me finding my purpose and all, or me finding my peace and finding God. And I'd also say that season was, I think it's also a stage.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I can't do those things right now because they're too boring. Like right now,
you've outgrown them.
I've really outgrown. Like I can't go out until like at 2 a.m. Like the way guys sherehe until like 6. That's when they're going. No, I can't do that. I would do that at that time, but at this time I feel like that stage for me is over. And yeah.
Okay, that's so
interesting.
A lot of ups and downs. There's an episode we did with Simba. I really referenced that episode a lot. I've just realized, but he was saying he really doesn't understand the concept of backsliding, because as far as he's concerned, he's always been a Christian.
Yeah.
So to other people, they might look at him and be like, oh, he's definitely backslid.
Yeah.
But to him, he's definitely still a Christian. Maybe he's just going through a down moment, and then there's like the up. So do you relate with that?
When the Bible says that all things work for good, I feel like I would not have reached to the demographic I reach now if I didn't live that life. So at that time I feel like I'm lost. I would feel guilty, but I feel it was necessary for me to go through all these patterns, so that, because if I was talking to the people that I talk to right now, from the guy who had just left primary, that would not be on God's purpose. So now I feel like I relate with people who are believers, people who are not believers, like tu wa kawaida in life.
Yeah.
Because it's normal, it's part of our growth, it's part of our life. And I feel like that's now what God uses for you to reach out to these people. So for me, your time, I would look at it as if I'm lost, but I felt like it was necessary for me to go through those parts. Because you see now, by the time I'm going to F2, what is happening at F2 is that people who are there mostly are the people who end up being the big musicians. That was the place that discovered almost every big artist, you know. Remember when Shafi and Slides, like, yeah, those guys would perform there all the time. So kumbe, in future, I'm supposed to be like a gospel artist, you know. And so I feel like I felt lost, but I was exactly, should I say where I was exactly where I was supposed to be, or should I say that God would still even use those lost moments for his own glory and to his own purpose? Yeah.
Okay, that's good. And I think that might speak to someone who is feeling lost, and they just need to know that they're exactly where they need to be, and God has placed them in that moment, that place that they are, and they need to stop doubting it and feeling like
feeling guilt.
Yeah.
Because you see now the devil uses that guilt to push you further away. So you feel like umekosea Mungu, you need to get your life in order for you to come back fast. But really, I mean, God just wants you to just stay committed to whatever he's put in your heart. It's like when you look at now somebody like Joseph, I'm sure when he's in prison, he's like, and this is, I shared this on IG the other day. It's like if he felt like he was like God had left him, or when David is now taking care of the sheep, yet he's been anointed to be the king.
Yeah.
You know, he just feels, you know, there was a time even David had to run to another country and pretend to be mad because Saul was looking for him.
Yeah.
This is, I think, 1 Samuel 20 or something. So he goes to this place, he has to like drool, he has to apply dirt on himself because Saul is looking for him. And if these other people of this country know that this is the king who has been anointed, they would have killed him.
Yeah.
And I'm sure at that moment, he felt like maybe God had just completely forgotten about him.
Yeah.
But he was exactly where God wanted him to be.
Yeah.
And he grew with the people that God wanted him to grow with. These are the people who ended up being the mighty men of David. So it's something you may realize in a life that we try to run away from God and all, but we're exactly where he wants us to be. And it all now makes sense in future when you take time to just reflect back.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. And I love that video that you did, by the way. I was the one you're talking about on Instagram.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to watch it fully, but I saved it to be like, okay, I need to go watch and internalize what he's saying, because I know there's a word there. Yeah. So so now you're in uni now. So is that a point where now you just like experiment with things, you do crazy things like a lot of us did, or is it, what was your uni life like?
Uni was equally wild, man. Like uni was, I even think uni now took this wildness to a whole new level, you know. So but this time I'm also a musician, because I started being in Cycos. We formed Cycos at 2011. You remember Cycos?
How can I forget?
Yeah. So we formed the group at 2010 when we were still in high school. That's how it was, an insider event. It was happening. Kina Meja came, performed. Size 8 came, performed. And then now we also performed there. And then I was like, Kagiri, Dambis, what are you guys doing? So we just form a group. That's how Cycos was formed.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be a bit careful so that nisichome sana. Because sometimes people would see us on TV.
Choma.
But I'm also a young person.
Yeah.
Like, there are girls. There's a lot of sherehe happening. I remember one time tukiwa kwa bash fulani. Somebody comes up to me like, wewe nilikuona tukuza. Ambia wewe uko zako zimeshika, you know?
Yeah.
But it's true. It was just that the wild living that we were living. And I guess it was a stage. But I was still going to church. So that we'd go to for dundas. But on Sunday, I go to church. So sometimes I'd even drag my friends to sitam, but sasa nawa drag nikiwaambia bedhe kuna madem kujeni. And those guys
it's so come. Funny that men go to church for babes.
Yeah. Guys would always, when I tell them they're babes, alafu wakuje church, unajua church kweli church uko na very hot babes, you know.
Yeah.
So they would, okay, this is a place I want to be, you know. Hata kawa waongeleshi. But I remember years later, one day I met one of my friends, tulikuwa tunaenda naye Dunda, akitoka church sitam. And I was like, so umetoka church? And like, yeah, nimetoka. And you see, some people also grew up in places where they were not introduced to the faith. So for me to see him years later, but he still goes to church. But initially, mi nilimbait tu na kumwambia kuna madem, kwa sababu that's the only thing. You know, when you're in campus, that was the only thing we used to listen to. Kaa tunakuja hiyo bash, lazima ikuwe na madem. Kaa tunaenda hii place, lazima ikuwe na madem. So yeah, that was my campus life. I think my campus life was wilder, but by the time now I'm starting to finish, I have met my Pasi, Pastor George. So because of the hassles, because of the struggles of the industry, we were not getting a lot of shows to perform and all that stuff. So we decided to organize our own gigs. So there was a year, I can't remember if it was 2014, we decided that we were going to be performing at 52 churches for 52 Sundays. That's like a different church every Sunday. You guys are not even being paid by anyone. You guys just go do ministry. So in the course of all that, we performed at Deliverance Church down home. And that's where we meet this guy who's so energetic. He's treating us so well. That was now Pastor George Masharia. And I was like, I've always looked for a spiritual mentor. And I feel like this guy is really cool. And that's how we plugged into Pastor George. Now, when I'm now starting to plug into Pastor George is when now I'm moving now away from too much kuchoma sana, like tuna umeban sana. Now you're trying to get your walk straight with Christ. And I think that's now where maybe I'd say, because sasa hiyo ndio time yenye tunamaliza kampo, that's when now I start living the straight life. Plus also now I met Wanjiru at this time.
Okay, so
like sasa pia sasa siwezi katia all over,
yeah,
you know?
You were...
Kitambo you would do that because you're not serious and all that stuff. But now also I've met Wanjiru, I don't want to mess this up. This looks like it's a bit serious. It's going somewhere. And that's how I'd say that now maybe I evolved into a more mature believer. And yeah, to this point, I was always shy of proclaiming my faith publicly. Because you remember that thing for when I joined high school, it was so uncool.
Yeah.
So I always used to feel like it's uncool. You know? And by the way, I've struggled with this for years. So it's like where I feel like God gives me a huge audience, but I really don't want to bring up the faith a lot because I feel like maybe now it will put people off.
Yeah.
But now, even for me to do the Instagram videos that I do,
you have to like,
that's such a huge need.
Give yourself a pep talk.
And then now when I go to the insights, these are the videos that they have like almost 500 shares. Pale kwa ile kitu ya DM. They have crazy reach. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe kama tunachoma to chome. Let's just we can't keep shying away from this. But it's taken a lot of time to grow to get that level.
I really relate with that point, especially because I've also gone through those struggles as well, of just feeling like I have this platform, but I really don't want to shout about God like that because it will put people off. Maybe people are just here to see my cute outfits and my makeup and they go. But then now, like as the years have been going by, I've become more vocal about it because it's such a big part of who I am. It would be such a disservice to not share that part of me. But I've also really wrestled with God about it. Really? We've wrestled. I've shared in this season especially about how I really wrestled with God. Like we really, I question, I ask why, but why God? And it's just gotten to a point where I was just like, okay, God, I'm tired of running. I'm tired of refusing. Fine, just do your thing. And every time I do something that I feel like God has led me to do, if things don't go well, I'm usually just like, God, when do uliniambia nifanye hiki tu? So you're gonna help me figure this thing out.
It just reminds me of something I was sharing the other day on Instagram as well. So I have this word of the week that I share every Monday, sometimes on Tuesdays because nimechelewa. 10 is on my neck. So it's like when you look at the story of the spies, when Moses sends out the spies to go and spy the land, they come back with such a negative report. Oh, we saw these people, they were like giants. We looked like grasshoppers in front of them. Nobody told them that they looked like grasshoppers. They just believed they looked like grasshoppers. Fast forward, when you see now Joshua sends a group of spies as well before they get to the promised land. This is the first time they get to talk to somebody from Canaan. And they speak to a lady called Rahab, who was a prostitute.
The prostitute,
And she decides to really cover for these guys. But Rahab tells these guys, by the way, we have been hearing about you guys. We have been so terrified about you guys. Oh man, we are so scared about you guys. And that just went to show me that we're only so scared to tap into what God has called us to be. Yet that side has already accepted us. Like the audience is ready for you. Like God has already made it possible for you to just sail through. But sasa you woga too. The same thing you're saying, that you keep wrestling with God. Like, will brands still want to work with you? They will feel like maybe you're too churchy. And I feel like it's mostly a Christian thing, because when I look at some of my friends from other faiths, they're normally so vocal about their faith, and it really inspires me. Like, you'd be somewhere having lunch, the guy's like, it's time for prayer. He has to go and pray, and then I'm like, first Christians, we still want to talk about
it's very like low key,
safe,
like hush, hush.
Ukifika kwa restaurant, you still don't want to pray for your food because you feel like it's awkward. By the way, when I interact with even people of other faith, they just totally just inspire me to stop being this guy who's just so enclosed and so held up into this. So I've always felt like ministry is part of what I've been called to do. I've just always run away from it. So hata mi nikikuona ukidu hivi, by the way, Sharon, you really inspire me. Like, for real, when you started like being very vocal about your faith, I'm like, okay, at least ka tunachoma picha tunachoma wengi.
Tunachoma si wote. But I'm like, I feel like even my word from this is just to stop seeing myself as a grasshopper when God sees me as a giant. Like, that is so deep. Ben, hata sijui kama una understand.
It's true.
Yeah, because you see yourself as a grasshopper and other people perceive you completely differently. And I think it's some sort of imposter syndrome or, just feeling like, God, but why me? Why is it me you want to, that I go and tell people these things that you want me to go and say? So I love what you shared about Pastor George. Funny enough, we've had Naomi Mboro here. And she also shared when she met Pastor George, she felt so welcomed and she was taken in and all of that. So good job to Pastor George. You're doing a really good job from what we are hearing. So you meet Pastor George. At this time, is Cyco still happening?
Cyco is still happening. Cyco is still happening big time. In fact, now that you've mentioned Naomi, Kags was dating Miss Gashie. Miss Gashie, Tracy by the way, a very interesting person, is running for office at UON.
I remember, yes.
she's trying to become one of the student leaders.
Student leader. With Babu Owino.
Yeah, with
Tracy.
Can you imagine? Like, shout out to you, Miss Gashie. Tracy. Hey, Tracy, ukwa 2G. So we've gone to Kabete campus to campaign for her. So we perform and then we endorse her, And then also at the same time, kina Miss Gashie and Naomi Mburu, they have a Bible study. Even Muga, they have a Bible study in Kabete. So once in a while we'd go for that Bible study, just share the word with people. And such things would really strengthen our faith. Because unajua ukiwa KU, maybe your roommates just don't go to church, they just don't care about church, nothing, So sometimes when you meet other people in the same community who have the same belief, it actually strengthens you up. So that was the season for Pastor George. Cyco is still happening, and now we've started going out to other Bible studies, and one of them is the one that was in UON Kabete. We had very interesting people.
I think we've been saying this entire season that community is so important. And doing a walk with God alone can is very hard, but when you have people around you, your friend's girlfriend has a Bible study and then this one has a and this one has a ministry, you can tap in, and it's a lot easier when you have people you're doing it with.
Community is the foundation of Christianity. Actually, when you look at even the church in Acts, that church grew because people would meet to fellowship. People would meet at churches. Actually, churches were established from people's houses. When you look at somebody like Lydia, who was such a rich woman, she was a big baller. She was the one who sponsored the church in the book of Philippians is written to the people in Philippi. It's because Lydia sponsored that whole movement. She was a very rich woman. That also speaks about the role of women in ministry, because I feel like that's also an understated role. They played massive role even to the growth of the church. So community is something that will really make or break you, So if you do it alone, sometimes the devil is able to whisper to you stuff. The devil does not have power to destroy anything in your life. What he does, however, is that he feeds you to small lies, then you destroy it by yourself. So it's either comes in form of pride, arrogance, you start feeling like maybe you're better than other people because of a certain success that you've had. or it could also come as in form of fear, like how dare you think God wants to use you, you know, or how will people look at you, you know, you're gonna look weird. Yani, that's grasshopper thing is what I'm telling you. So when the devil whispers these things, sometimes the only way they are you remove them out of your life is by getting inspired or being boosted by people who are around you. So community is massive. Community dictates how you also grow as a believer. Do you have a community?
I do, yes. Me and my friends who we actually met in campus, we have a Bible study together.
You're at MMU?
No, I was in MMU for like a
2
year.
hours. I'm like, what dogs? Adios.
But then how I even ended up in I ended up in MMU was a very humbling moment for me. God
What
really
happened?
knew that I'm trying to, okay, let me keep the story short. Basically, post high school, my parents were very strict growing up. So my dad was just like, you're not going so far away from home. You're going to go to a university close to home.
Yeah.
And then our neighbor was a librarian at Nazarene, African Nazarene. So she had really hyped up Nazarene to look like a great school. Also, it was a Christian school. So my dad just was just like, yeah, I don't want to hear anything or anyone else. That's where you're going. But I wanted to go to USIU. So I go to Nazarene for a semester, and then I was just like, no guys, I want to go to Daystar.
Yeah.
So my dad was just like, okay, fine. So by the time I had finally convinced him to let me go to Daystar, I had missed the intake for Daystar. So he said, okay, so that you don't stay at home idle, just go to MMU because you really want to get out of Nazarene, because it was just very strict.
Nazarene was strict.
Yes,
Oh,
they were.
really?
Yeah, because they are a Christian university. Go to MMU for like a semester, then we wait till the next intake for Daystar. So that semester that I was in Nazarene, we had gone to MMU because it's close. It's not so far. Like I think like you can even walk.
Yeah.
Because MMU has a pool, like a swimming pool. So
Oh, yeah,
my friends
I know
and
that
I,
pool. I've been to MMU a lot of times.
my friends and I wanted to go swimming, so we go to this pool at MMU to swim. And then we had a friend who was in school there, so he takes us around to give us like a tour of the school. He takes us to like the hostels or whatever. So me, in my privileged mind, I'm like, ew, these hostels are so dirty. What do you mean the boys can just enter the girls hostels and the girls can just enter the boys hostels? Because in Nazarene that could not happen at all. Also, Nazarene was like very clean, very whatever, all of these things. Like you can tell.
Yeah.
Like it's a privileged place. So I go to MMU and I'm just like, ew, it's so dirty, it's so smelly, it's so like, as in I was just a spoiled little brat.
Yeah.
Then there were like warthogs running around.
Once in a while, lions, like.
There was a baboon we saw literally climbing up and going into someone's room to take food. And I was just like, this is so ghetto, like get me out of here. So now when my dad suggests that I go to MMU for a semester, I was just like, you hate me. Like clearly you just hate me, because why would you want to take me there?
Yeah.
But eventually he was just like, you're not staying at home idle. So I ended up going to MMU. It was supposed to be for a semester until I go to Daystar. I ended up staying for a year. I did a whole diploma course. I finished it. But that was a very humbling moment for me, because it showed me, one, my privilege. I didn't know that I was privileged at all. It also opened me up to other people from other social lives. And I think the fees was 40K for diploma, and a lot of my friends were JAB students. So the government would pay, and they'd pay 11K. And they would tell me their parents are struggling to pay 11K. That was a foreign concept to me, because I'm just like, you know what I mean? It really opened me up to my privilege, and it really humbled me. And I think without that experience I had at MMU, I'd probably be a stuck-up, spoiled child. And I don't think my dad knew that when he was saying go to MMU, but it really changed my perception on money, on privilege, on all of these things. So I'm glad that I went. I also met great people there. Actually, that's where I met Kags as well.
Oh, really?
We met in his last semester. Both our last semesters.
He was doing IT, I think.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. So, yeah.
Were you a believer there? Were you a believer when you were at MMU?
No.
Oh, really?
No, I wasn't.
So
Yeah.
at what point do you become a believer?
Post uni, actually, post Daystar.
Really?
Yeah, even when I was in Daystar, I wasn't.
Even after you're forced to go for this, like I hear there's like a Bible study, is it?
No, there's a chapel.
Chapel, yes,
Yeah.
chapel.
I barely went for chapel.
Oh, really?
Because that rule for you have to have gone to chapel 75% to graduate was taken out when I was there. So when it was taken out, I was like, okay, so I don't need to go to chapel to graduate. Fine, I'll never go. So I never went.
Were you at Valley Road?
I was in Athi River.
Athi River.
So you can imagine.
And there were more animals there as well.
Oh, there were snakes. There were hyenas. Like, it was just crazy. There was so many sounds at night. You're just hearing.
Do you feel like God on a call for
growling.
KWS from MMA? At a see Daystar Valley
Yes,
Road.
please,
Ni
yes.
Daystar Athi. No, I think at some point sharing that Daystar Valley, Daystar Athi River could perform. Man, alafu sijui tunaambia we take care, we look at the trees, maybe kuna leopard. I'm like, what in the Nat Geo is this?
Yeah, we had a path called Snake Path, because in that path you are like likely to meet those two like small snakes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That would be there.
It was just a crazy time.
Yeah.
So now you've met Pastor George. This was like at the end, like towards the end of uni.
Yeah.
So between now and then, how many years has that been?
I'd say, we've stayed together around 10 years, man.
Around 10 years.
10 years, actually.
So how have the last 10 years been?
The last 10 years have been great. So we meet Pastor George. We end up being very cool friends. He mentors us, and then I think Cyco's won the Group of the Year Groove Awards. We end up being this big group. But eventually we felt like all of us were called into different spaces. I felt like I was still called into the music space, the creative space. So I still stayed with the music. Started working with Pasi. He left DC Doni, went to K3C. Then Pastor George feels like God is calling him to start this prayer meeting. So we start meeting at Jivanji for prayers. Man, why are we going to Jivanji for prayers? Like, I really want to find it so shady. So in fact, most of the time nikiendanga Jivanji for prayers, I used to have a cape or a hoodie. Because you remember that thing about being cool? It's still like would follow me. So I'm like, mazee, sasa hizi ni gani? Tumeanza kuja saa Jivanji. Sasa hii ni mambo gani, you know? So we'd meet every Thursday for prayer. You need to obey, but deep down you're like, I wish there were better options here. So we start going there for prayers. A lot of people came. I think day one had like 100 people, just young people. So we'd come pray from 6 to 7. Every Thursday, 6 to 7. So later on, Pastor George moves into... Now, this is now my salvation life. And how now it starts being intertwined with ministry in church, you know? Because yes, I'm dating Shiro, and I enjoy that season because now on one hand, I'm also growing as a person. I'm also growing spiritually. In fact, when I started dating Shiro, I had to take her to Pasi, you know, and I was very worried, like, will Pasi like Shiro, you know? But Pastor George is like so cool. He was so happy to see her, nini. But the one person I was sure will not like Pastor George was Shiro, because Shiro also has grown up in a Christian home.
Yes.
She's too cool for life. So I'm like, ataanza kuniona mimi ni weirdo, ati nampeleka ku meet Pasi.
Yeah.
Shiro ends up liking Pastor George so much. They end up being very good friends. So I'm like, thank you, Jesus, you know? So when ministry now is starting we start at Jivanji, then Pasi feels like God is calling him to start a youth church, a ministry for young people. So the first service happens at his house in Utawala. So we went there. It was like 6 people, you know. It was so me. I'm just submitted under him as a mentor, as a spiritual figure in my life. I feel like that's also very important for a believer to have a spiritual guide. But it's something you really need to pray about, so that God points you to the right people,
person.
You know,
Yeah.
so that you're not like in a cultic movement.
Yeah, being misled.
You're also not thinking for your own, because I feel like sometimes also now believers get to a place where when you have a mentor, you don't want to think. Now you just want them to think for you and tell you this and that, yada yada. For me, it wasn't like that. For us, we had a lot of freedom to decide whatever we wanted. And I feel, now looking back, I'm like, that's a very good way to mentor people, because Pasi was not those people to ask us like, are you sleeping around, Nini? You know, it was like, he would just set a good example and for you to just learn. So niwe una feeling too guilty. Ukifanya hizo vitu una feel too guilty in your own way. So it's a challenge between you and God, you know? And I liked it, you know? So Pasi starts church at Utawala. We start there. Me, first of all, I'm like, I know I'm just helping him with this church thing for a while. And
then you're done.
Then he's going to get some experts to come, because there is no way Like this has to be the biggest joke of the century that I'm supposed to end up in ministry actively, you know. So he starts church at Utawala, felt like 10 people, you know. First of all, day one mimi nimeenda hiyo service kwanza tuna t-shirt na sandals because me thought like tutachill tu kwa viti amevaa hadi suti amevaa hadi viatu like yeye anaifanya so serious, you know. Like we'll start with praise and worship, we'll have this, we'll have a moment of giving, we'll have this. He was so serious from 11 to 1. That service was done like a proper service and we were like 7 people. I'm like, okay, Pasi, you're being too dramatic, you know. But kumbe, it's, you know, you gotta be very faithful with whatever small that you have if God is gonna trust you with the much. Next we move to Millennium. Millennium was like a small restaurant hapo Tao. First of all, si like hizi vako za tuna meet church Tao, because it's like so it's like so shady, you know. At that time Tao was not so popping, you know. Right now I see people come to Tao a lot to create content, especially on Sunday. Cool places were outside Tao, like the Valley Roads, the Kilimanis, like those were the places maybe unataka kuenda. Not CBD, and for crying out loud, not Moi Avenue, opposite Moi Avenue Primary. So I used to feel like hey, have you ever seen that video for Mathris ilikoga zina meet up before they go for a road trip? You know, Mathris go for road trips. Cool Mathris, hot Mathris. So they'd meet outside hapo Moi Avenue Primary. Remember hata kuna kuanga na video ya Mathri flani ina reverse alafu it rams into a cop's car. Have you ever seen that video? It's a popular video. It's always trending. Tulikuwa service. Like ikigonga hiyo gari tulikuwa ndani ya service with like 40 people. Church grew and Nairobi Cinema. And that's how now because now I was serving, you know, Pasis tells me that maybe now you need to be in charge of prayers. There was a time I was in charge of prayers. I wasn't even a serious person because I always used to feel like this is just a pass. Tunapitia tu. Me, I'm called to be a musician. I want to be a celeb. I want to really be the superstar. At that time, gospel industry was very celeb oriented because there was the Groove Awards. Like superstar, like gospel was where the superstar life was, not even secular. Like most of the times when you do the Groove Awards, that's when now you'd see secular artists come over for Groove. And so I thought that was the way. I thought that I'm just clearing this space for a while and then I'm going to be a superstar. Then kazi yangu kuvaa tu ngepa mtaani, hakuna sawa naniona. Then now I'm serving in church. At first I feel like God has really wasted my time. I feel like now kuserve church. You see, at that time the mindset that I had was if you're going to succeed in music, you should not be too common. You should be rare, you know. Now serving in church means you're seen every Sunday by people. You're interacting with mere local mortals, you know. I want to be hidden. Kumbe, I didn't realize that that's exactly where God wanted me to be. Serve with the people on Sunday, just love on people. And, you know, God just grew our brand in his own mysterious ways, you know. Got married. And me, God has just given me everything I would ever have desired, you know. So my journey with him is just a journey of miracles. I see so many miracles in my life. Yani, I'm just like, this is God, you know. And so that's how I have grown as an individual. Seeing God at different levels of my life, proposing to my girlfriend then, getting money for a show, you know, like it was just like a simple campaign that I got. I was like, okay, all this money is gonna go to negotiating with mzee, you know. So by the time the Russia is in August, I had done that campaign in April. Nilikuwa hadi nishawapatia ka 100 days za kunichelewesha hiyo payment. But kama wangenichelewesha hiyo payment past those 3 months, like they would have really messed me up. So we got married. After getting married, we start this beautiful thing called Joyride, and then God just takes it to another different levels. So I'm just seeing God in every step of the way. So for me to have a relationship with God, it's like this. It's very personal, you know. It's like I hear from him, he speaks to me, he directs my steps. Sometimes I feel like tunachoma picha. And then I'm like, and then later on you're like, no, this is exactly how it was supposed to be. And even right now, when you look at church, for example, we have these pop-ups. They're called pop-ups. It's like this events we do.
I came for one.
Yeah, you did, and you didn't even tell me.
Nilienda tu kwa nikaka na watu.
Yeah, ulikuwa kwa crowd when I was like, hey, Sharon. But then I was even shocked to see you, like you would come for such a gig, you know. Like I used to even fear posting such gigs because I'm like, sasa nani anakuja gig Tao? Like, is there parking, you know? But now those gigs are so full, man.
I saw you had one on Sunday.
We had one on Sunday. They are full to capacity.
People are hungry
people are hungry.
Just experience God. And me, I came just because I really love the music. I love all of those artists you guys had on the lineup. I love their music. That's like music I blast in my house.
Oh, really?
What's the name of the old lady who sang?
Jemima Thiongo.
My mom, I grew up listening to her because my mom loved her so much. So I even had to take videos for my mom to be like, oh, remember her? Because like that's the music I grew up listening to.
Legend.
So of course I was going to be there. Now, Maverick City.
Cyco. Tumalize interview tu sahi hapa.
So bado na name.
Okay.
Who else do I listen to? A lot of Tanzanian artists actually. I like the Swahili worship they do. So those guys.
Kenya nakuna?
Kenyans, Alice Kimanzi.
Kim, of course.
I like Karura Chapel. Karura Voices. I like their music. Noah, what's his name? Is his name Noah? Noel Nderitu. I love Noel Nderitu. Ben Cyco. But Spotify always ninis you. Like even if I click someone else's, if I click even Alice, they'll bring you in the playlist.
People who might be listening to this person.
So
even doing gospel music for me at some point I felt like it was a shady thing. Like I never even used to tell people I do gospel music, or unless how many on Aqua TV. Even my digital audience took a while for me to share that this is the music that I do. Because I felt like it was, first of all, I felt like God was putting this heaviness burden in my heart to do music in like nice Swahili Zouk sound. And I'm just like, I want to be a bit cool, But that's the sound that God put for me in there. I'm currently working on an album, but now that has a lot of different sounds. We've tried some touch of piano, some dancehall and all that stuff. So
can't wait to listen.
It's really, 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 really nice. So even just seeing people hungry more for these gigs even more and more, it's just a blessing. Because kuna time sasa now gospel went really down. Now there was a time it was really up. Then now it went really down. And it went down when now we were about to blow up. So you're blowing up, there's nothing. There's just nothing for you to see. No industry. Everybody has gone with the secular, because that was also the rise of gengeton. So when gengeton picks up and it becomes such a huge thing, a lot of gospel artists, because we were also used to that boom twaf, move to gengeton as well. So the industry is just left there bare and all. So by the time tunafanya ma new song Salama Tawala, there's not much like you're just doing it for God. Like at this point you've made peace. Maybe you'll never make money, but it's interesting to see that now people are becoming more bubbly about gospel stuff and all that. So for me, I feel like there's a revival. Even what you're doing is part of it. That we shall have. We are going to see a lot of rising of cool Instagram people who are creating content also for Christ and all that stuff. So I believe that. I believe. So I also believe pia wewe uko kwa you're spearheading something that when you look in the future, there are people who are gonna say that we started doing this because Sharon set the pace for it. Yeah, Deborah.
I didn't even think about that. But what would you say has been your best kept secret? Or maybe like your biggest lesson that you've learned with your journey with God so far?
Is that God doesn't do things the way sometimes we might think. And he's so passionate and so merciful. Like sometimes we judge ourselves too harshly, that God is not even judging you like that. The Bible says that your sins he shall remember no more. Like God doesn't even remember some of those things that you did, but you keep holding yourself hostage. You still feel like you're not qualified enough to do some of these things. But I come to realize that your plan is not God's plan sometimes might not be your plan. So you just move in obedience and do whatever God has put in your heart. Whether you feel like you're worthy or not, that obedient move is what changes everything. So I've learned to just obey what God wants me to, what God wants me to do. Whether I feel like I'm qualified for it, whether I feel like I'm called, whether I feel like called, yes, I have to know that. But whether I feel like I'm holy enough to do it, we have these standards. Like now you want to share God's word on Instagram. Like, how holy are you, my guy? So don't hold yourself to such high standards that God himself is not even holding you against.
And for me, every time I think about that, I really, really, really relate to Moses, because I relate to God using a guy who can barely speak well. He's not articulate. He's a murderer. In fact, he fled his land because he murdered someone. And God saw him and chose him and said, you're the one who I'm going to use to free my people and bring them into the promised land. So I really, really love that.
It's interesting when you read the Bible in its actual format, like without... sometimes we read the Bible with a preconceived attitude. Maybe you're expecting a lot of people to be holy, righteous. People are wild in the Bible. There's a story I was reading about David's son. David's son takes David's concubine and has sex with this concubine on a rooftop in front of everyone so that he can degrade his dad, so that he can take over the leadership. As in, that's like Game of Thrones stuff, like it's not something you expect to read in the Bible, but that's exactly what happens when you read in Genesis about how some of Jacob's children, they went somewhere because their sister was raped, so they lied to this group of men. Then they circumcised every person who was there. Then they killed them after. That's morbid, you don't want to listen. You don't expect such things in the Bible, but you start realizing that these were just ordinary people who just obeyed. They were not perfect, they were not holy. So even when sometimes because the world has this tendency of judging Christians based on a certain perfection level, which sometimes we're the ones who also perpetuate it. We have this feeling we're better than everyone, we are holy. We have this self-righteous thing going on. So what the world does now, they start holding you against such standards. And when you fail, now people start going hard at it. People go hard at you because you failed. Like this cancel culture, which has become a very big thing right now, where people will just cancel you because of an opinion. Like you share one opinion and people don't even want to know the kind of person, the values you have and all that stuff. They will just cancel you because of that opinion. It's like the cool trendy thing right now in the world. But that's when you look at people in the Bible that God used, people are just weird. People are just like David was weird, like amegrona msee, wamekuwa pamoja, then anaiba bibi yake, then anaua msee, like
and takes the wife to be
his children are just so messed up. David's children walikuwa tuna mambo, So when you read the Bible in its actual format, you see that God used weird people.
He did. He doesn't use he had the option of using the Pharisees, the teachers of the word, the people who were, the Sadducees. Like he had the option of using all of those people, but no, he picks the most random people. He picks a random shepherd boy. He picks a random guy who murdered a guy. He picks a guy who was actually slaughtering people in the name of God. And he's ends up writing like a bunch of the New Testament books. Like he doesn't care for perfection. He doesn't care for how other people perceive you. He really doesn't.
He just doesn't. Like when you start looking at God that way, you start depending on him fully. And also when you succeed in something, then it's not your power. Like you know very well. When people tell me sometimes that this song is so deep to them, I'm just like, when you were writing it, we were not sure about it. So I know there's another powerful force behind it. And that's how now I look at everything. Even when you come up with concepts on Joyride, sometimes we're like, this is not going to go that far. Then it becomes a thing. Like how we even started campus tours. We were just invited to Daystar to do a small talk, and then after that we were like, maybe we can replicate it to somewhere else. Then now it's a thing, So you start feeling that out of one move of obedience, this was not the most genius thing to do, but the way people are receiving it, it's like, this is like everything. So you realize that it's God's favor that's just fueling. So you don't take the credit. But when you start doing things based on how good you think you are, how righteous you are, now you're starting to get something called pride. And that is like that. Now you start going on a downward hill because you become so judgmental to people. You know when you hear people have messed up and the first thing you do is how could they have done this thing, that's already judgment. Like what makes you think you would never find yourself in that situation,
Yeah.
So it just changes how you view everything, and it brings this humility inside of you to know that you don't have the powers to be good enough. You don't have the powers to be righteous. The only reason you're not a drunkard, just like maybe another person that you're judging, is just by God's grace. It has nothing to do with the fact that ukiona billboards za pombe unafanya hivi. No, it has nothing to do with that. So you start looking at people from a point of love as a point from a point of judgment, where you are holding them with such high standards.
Oh, I love that so much. And I just love it. I think my biggest takeaways from this conversation has been, one, that you're exactly where you need to be. You're exactly where God has called you to be. Don't doubt it. Even if you're feeling lost, you're exactly where you need to be. Sometimes God brings you into a place of, wilderness. Or sometimes he allows you to feel those feelings of being lost or whatever, because he knows what he's doing in it. So it's okay, and you're exactly where you need to be. I think I also really love what you've said about obedience, that sometimes all it takes is just one yes, and just being obedient to what God has called you to be, and he uses it, and he takes it, and he makes amazing things out of it. It's been so nice to see Joyride and the growth that you guys have, and you inspire so many of us, and I think your ideas are really, for you, you're just like, they're just simple ideas, but they're actually revolutionary to revolutionary to the industry. And I know you inspire a lot of people, us included here at Best Kept Secrets. I've also loved to see your journey as a person, and because we've known each other when we were teenagers to where we are now, even watching you and Shiro and everything that with your marriage and your relationship, it's been so nice and so wonderful to see. And thank you so much,
Sharon. Yani, I feel like God is just like super awesome. Like he's like the best thing that could happen in your life. Seeing where I grew up from, the life I'm living now, and the journey, how it's been in between, I used to feel like now we are completely lost. But then eventually you start seeing how beautifully he's molding this whole process. That's when you're like, okay, maybe I just need to be chilling and just let God be. It also gives you rest, knowing that you don't control much. You don't control if you're gonna wake up tomorrow, or if you're a healthy person. I mean, you could go to the gym and try and eat healthy, but really, you being healthy has nothing much to do with a lot of things that happen in our lives are beyond us. We play a very small role. Yes, there's the part where you have to obey, you have to do things here and there, but most of it is just God's grace, man. So thanks
Thank
for
you so
having me on
much
this
for
show.
coming. Thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks, Sharon. This is so good, man. We need to do our part B or something.
We do actually. You're always welcome here.
Thanks.
We'll keep having you over and over again.
Just tell me in good time, nisikuangushe tena kwa sababu leo nilikuwa najua if I miss this show it's gonna be personal. So I was like, okay. I have to come. But thank you. Keep doing a great job. I hope this also will lead up to events. You need to start doing events, man.
It's gonna be
crazy.
I do.
Really?
No, I mean, maybe I'm just letting God take me where he wants to take me. If he takes me there, then this hour tutafanya.
He will.
He
will. He's not called you to this to embarrass you, so just believe.
True.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for coming. Thank you guys for watching. If you're watching us on YouTube, if you're listening to us on Spotify and our other audio platforms, thank you for listening. You will see us or hear us in our next episode. Bye.